New York City. It never stops going up, especially here in Midtown Manhattan, where scarcely anybody can afford to live in touch with the earth, unless they started doing so quite a while back.
Here's where I plant all my bulbs.
Yeah.
I have about 400 in, probably too close together.
All personally planted?
All personally planted.
How long does that take?
Prayed over.
When do they come up?
Well, they come up in, April.
Yeah.
Some in March.
Katharine Hepburn has lived for 50 years in Turtle Bay, a rare square of green ground just off 3rd Avenue in the East 40s. Turtle Bay is walled in by old brownstone houses. She bought one of these in 1931 and set about fighting off the first of several generations of property developers. Today, Turtle Bay is a protected area. The skyscrapers may still enviously crowd the skyline, but she is free to concentrate on how her garden grows.
That sycamore tree is knocking down the wall and eats everything in sight.
Oh, it's got big roots, has it?
Yep.
Katharine Hepburn has been a star actress all her long adult life, but the trappings of fame have never meant much to her, and publicity means nothing at all. She is a public figure, but not public property. The press found out a long time ago that she will say exactly what she deems proper and not a word more. The rare interviews she has given have never been allowed to range beyond her work. Getting her to talk about herself would not be easy. After all, she had conquered Hollywood and Broadway by doing what she wanted.
I never bought a house in Hollywood.
Why was that?
I didn't want my bones to lie in that dry ground.
The daughter of a highly educated Connecticut family, which took the equality of women for granted, she was a feminist before it was a movement. Fascinated by her independence, the men in her life have loved her deeply, and Spencer Tracy loved her till he died. But the secret that the two of them kept so long has still never really come out, because the one who's left has continued to say nothing.
So, come on back.
Pretty good here.
Nevertheless, after months of polite but firm refusal, she had at last agreed to say something, so we all turned up at her place to make a picture. As the latest in a long line of her leading men, which has included Tracy, Humphrey Bogart, Cary Grant, and John Barrymore, I perhaps had less to offer in terms of sheer physical magnetism, but at least I would be making up my own dialogue. More important, she would be doing the same. What would you be doing now if we weren't here ruining your morning?
Lying in bed.
Yeah, really?
Drinking.
So the heavy exercise days are behind you, huh?
No, not really. Heavy exercise. I swim at the River Club and I walk around Central Park when I can get in. But the days of the rich have ended. Central Park is closed in the good weather to anyone with a car, and you have no place to park your car.
People tend to think that the preoccupation with fitness is a very recent event invented by Jane Fonda.
No, I don't think that. No, well, invented by whom?
By Jane Fonda. But in fact, it goes right back, doesn't it?
No, it goes back.
You were...
It goes back. My father was a very good athlete, and there was 6 of us. And I was the lightest member of the group, so I was top man on the pyramid. And I just got in the habit of a great deal of exercise from the time I was little.
Was it a sort of Spartan routine? There's a lot of emphasis on cold baths.
Cold baths. We were dumped into a cold bath every morning. 2 still do it. The others hated it. And I love it. I swim all winter. I think it's, it's good. Psychologically, it's good because you hate doing it.
Your father was full of ideas. I mean, the neighbours...
You mean the neighbours complained?
Well, the neighbours
No,
thought you were a pretty scandalous family, one way or another.
Only very intellectual.
Intellectual
Distinguished.
scandal.
Distinguished.
Scandal.
Yes.
Because
Well, they fought, you know, prostitution. They fought for the equal rights of male and female. Dad fought venereal disease in the very early days.
Which was an unspeakable subject, I imagine.
Unspeakable subject. He was a urologist.
Yeah.
My brother was a urologist.
And your mother was women's rights?
Mother
and-
was with Pankhurst, used to visit us and all that group.
So,
I think Mother began to think, when she had two of us, she began to think, is this why I've got a MA and a BA degree? And she thought it really isn't enough. And I think Daddy agreed with her, that it was, you know, not enough. So they went to a meeting where Pankhurst spoke, and Mother became fascinated. She was a brilliant speaker. She was a wonderful debater. I'm not so hot on that. I live in a more protected atmosphere. But she was brilliant. She was very, you know, first class up here. So was Dad. I'm mediocre.
yes, I can see that. But you got the idea.
No, truly.
But
I
you-
mean, they were both brilliant students. And they were, you know, Shaw was their god, and it was that time of life.
It was a very verbal household. You were encouraged to voice your opinion.
No, not particularly. We were invited to shut up and listen. And I think that was a good idea. You know, I mean, holding forth if you're dull is not a good notion.
Given this very individualistic background, it must have seemed quite normal you to shave your head at the age of 10. But why did you do it exactly?
Because I was desperate to be a boy. Desperate to be Jimmy, which I became.
Do you think you should have been a man with that?
Well, I wasn't, so it doesn't occur to me.
Well, it must have occurred to you at the time you were shaving your head.
No, it didn't. Well, no, I just thought the hair was a bunch of bulk. And I was a very good, you know, wrestler.
You're a tomboy.
I suppose so, yes.
But boys like tomboys best anyway, don't they? So
I don't know. Boys like me. They could take me or leave me. I don't think I was particularly popular with the boys.
some of the activities that your own particular childhood gang got up to weren't particularly intellectual. You were a sort of juvenile housebreaker, weren't you?
Well,
at one
I was,
stage?
yes, I was. I was the man who could do everything. And my friend Alibaba, God rest her soul, was the one who had the nerve. But she sat on the ground floor, and I climbed to the top and dropped through the skylight and let her in. But I would not have done it on my own.
But these are
I was too honorable.
These other people's houses? Yeah.
Well, there's no point
You're not
doing
doing-
your own house. I mean, well, for what?
There's a lot in what you say, madam, but I'm just trying to be clear here.
No, just clear. No, it was in the place where I was brought up and where I still live.
So you
in
were-
the summer, so the house is still there. And we broke into quite a number of houses, never disturbed anything, but accomplished our purpose. We got in. And in those houses, I stole one thing. It was a carved crocodile nutcracker. And I stole it. I loved it, and I stole it. And that house was easy because you could get in through the icebox opening. And they used to deliver the ice in those days. It was before the days of electric ice boxes. And I used to go in and out of that house, and I stole this. And then I had such a bad conscience, I took it back. And that was the end of my criminal career.
Did your father punish you? Did you ever get punished?
Yeah, I got punished, but not for things like that.
What for?
Because, well, for being a bore.
What did he do? Was he a spanker or
Well,
a...
no, he just hauled off and hit me. I sat next to him at the table.
He just clock you one, huh?
Yeah.
Did you get
And
a-
he'd spank. Yes, I was spanked. I liked that, and then I learned not to cry. So the spanking was no fun anymore, Dad said, so he stopped.
But you learned to hit people yourself. You've whacked a couple of people in your time, haven't you?
Well, yes, I might. I might. I have, yes. Why not? I don't think one should hit someone smaller.
Should be someone big, like, say, Peter O'Toole or someone like that.
Well, Peter O'Toole, yes, I did, and he should be hit quite often.
Why did you hit Peter
I hit
O'Toole?
Peter O'Toole because we had the same makeup man, but the makeup man belonged to Peter O'Toole. But Peter was not working. I was working down in the cellar in a jail with my boys. And I sent for the makeup man, and he didn't come. So I walked up, and I had to walk up a stairway, and I had to walk through a cloister. And as I clumped along, I got hysterical with laughter. I thought, this is really so terribly funny. Down the hill I went, opened the door of Peter's dressing room, climbed up the ladder, and I said, and I hauled off with gave him the back of my hand, and I said, the next time I send for the makeup man and you're not working, send him. And he did. Then Peter, we went back and did the scene, and Peter came in with his head all bandaged and his arm in a sling, crawling in. Funny man.
It improves him, do you think? Huh?
It improved him. Yeah. Yes, Peter admitted that.
Let's talk a bit more about your father.
My father was remarkable. I've got a lot of his letters. I've got all the letters that he ever wrote me. And someday I'll work on those because as advice to a kid, I mean, he had no faith in the profession that I chose. I think he wanted me to be a surgeon, and I studied chemistry and physics. Physics, I was so dumb, took me 3 years to pass the exam to get into college. And chemistry left me sort of blank.
I want to talk about your student days in a minute, but first I want to raise a point which you just might not want to talk about at all, in which case we just pass over it. But it sounds to me like, your childhood sounds like paradise. Mm-hmm. Did your brother's tragic death put an end to your childhood as far as you were concerned?
No. My father and mother never mentioned that. And I think whatever happened, whether it was an accident, which my father felt very definitely that it was, for very secure reasons. Dad, being a Southerner, played a lot of athletics against Northerners, teams in college. And the Northerners were all, for the black man. So the black man had a great sense of humor down there. And the black man learned to hang himself so that he could hold the rope with his neck and not let the noose really slide. He could be swung up in the air and not have it affect him at all. And Dad felt that Tom, waked up early. We were visiting in New York, and there were rafters, and he tried it.
The trick being sort of
to hang yourself.
To pretend to hang yourself.
Yes,
right?
to pretend to hang yourself. Now, the boy was a brilliant student, a brilliant musician. He was a prefect, everything was perfect. But who knows? None of us know each other, do we? Not too well. I mean, even not too well. We just can't get through to each other totally, I don't think. And so there's always the possibility that it was for misery's sake. But my mother and father, from the time it happened, and I called them and they came and all the unfortunate arrangements were made, it was never mentioned. Mother never went to the cemetery, never. We had a professor read the few words, but they never, mother, and it's usually the woman whom this destroys. And for these two people who'd brought us up with a great deal of freedom, it must have been a terrible, terrible blow, a terrible blow. But they certainly didn't show it to us. And life went on, and laughter went on.
But what about you inside? Because you actually...
Who knows?
You actually just...
Who knows? Who
Do
knows?
you think it might have been the start? In many ways, your career there's been lots of triumphs over adverse circumstances. Is that when that started? Is that when did you decide to overcome that shock?
No, not consciously. I mean, I don't think. No, No, how do you know about yourself? I mean, obviously, I loved my older brother. And obviously, it was a shock, and it made me feel that maybe people didn't understand what he was really like. And then I began to tutor instead of going to school.
What did your father want you to be? What do you think you were studying for?
Well, I was first studying to be a doctor, and then I would have liked to have been a surgeon. And I realized that the ladies in those days, even now, would have a tough time being a surgeon. And also, I just wasn't bright enough, I don't think. And I drifted into acting. I loved sort of giving little plays with a little theatre that I had to my younger brothers and sisters. And I did those plays. But I can't remember. I really don't know why. I think I drifted into it.
But you drifted into the one profession that your father couldn't really approve of because it involved drawing attention to yourself, isn't it?
I don't think he objected to that. I think he just thought that if you go into the theatre for a woman, it was a profession for her that would last about 5 years. Mine's lasted 52 so far, so I'm okay. Daddy was wrong.
What did you have to offer as an actress when you were starting off?
Well, what have I got to offer as an actress now? You tell me. I think it's a sort of idiot's profession.
We've got the evidence now for what you've got to offer as an actress, but then there wasn't any evidence, was there?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows why people look at someone? I think it's a question of charisma. I've seen kids that I thought, oh, look at him, look at her. Do you know? I don't know what it is that is the quality that makes one into a freak that is fascinating.
But if you didn't think much of your own looks, what was your faith in yourself based on?
I have no idea myself. I didn't have anything else. But what was I going to do? This was mine.
What was your voice like before it was trained?
According to me, or according to Tallulah Bankhead?
Okay,
Tallulah Bankhead said she thought it sounded like a lot of nickels dropping into a slot. But when she'd heard it long enough, everyone else's voice put her to sleep. So I was not aware that it was particularly loud. But I like to be heard. I'm sympathetic with the deaf. I mean, they can understand me and they can hear me.
Were you a easygoing, humble, compliant young thing? You weren't,
No. I don't think I was humble, and I never was easygoing. I was supercharged. I have a lot of energy.
But why weren't you? I mean, you had a reputation for asserting yourself and telling people their business when you didn't know
No, that's not true. I was sweet.
Yeah?
They say things, and I have a poor memory, so I'm not sure whether they're right or wrong. But I felt sweet.
You got fired
and I felt often.
You got fired often.
But that was because I think I wasn't very good, or I was too tall, or they thought I was too fast, or they just didn't like me.
Thought you were too fast? In what sense? In the sense
Well, I talk fast, and I talk loud, but I had wonderful thoughts going on inside my head.
How did you react to being fired? Did you blame them or blame yourself?
Didn't like it.
You think
No, I think I blamed them. I think I was right, too.
You think they were schmucks?
Well, I thought they wanted something typical. And I was fired out of a thing called Death Takes a Holiday, a very good part, in which I was playing with James Dale, who was a bloody good actor, and Philip Merivale. And I was fired. They came in just before the performance and said, Mr. Schubert is giving you the privileges of retiring from the cast. And I said, look, I'm not taking that privilege, and get out. You fire me if you want to. Just blow, because I've got to give a performance. So out I went after a week, and my father came down during that week to see what he thought. And he said, this was a story of a beautiful young girl who ran away with death, who was Philip Merivale. So Dad looked at it and he said, well, he said, you were playing an idiot and a neurotic, and I think you were very good.
What was the one that clicked? It was a leg show, wasn't
No,
it?
it was a leg show. It was Warrior's Husband.
And you showed the marvellous legs. Did you know you had good legs? Were you objective about that?
I think they were all okay. I think all of me was okay. I didn't object
It was
to
all
any of it.
exceptionally fine, and especially the teeth. But the legs were a great attention getter,
Yes,
weren't
lots
they?
of teeth. But, say, jaws. But I look at people who suddenly smile and I think, there I go. Terrible sight. Didn't think about it particularly.
Yeah, but there was a Hollywood scout who did, wasn't there? And you started getting the invitation from Hollywood. Did you want to be a movie star, or was it second
I
best?
wanted to be William S. Hart,
The cowboy.
Tom Mix, yeah.
You wanted to be a male movie
Any
star.
of those. I really wanted to ride that horse, you know.
Was it second best for you, Hollywood, after Broadway?
No, first best.
Straight away, huh?
Yes, because I don't think it's terrifying, you see. I think the theatre is absolutely terrifying. And I came back several times only to be kicked. But I think the theatre, you really have to deliver the goods. I think the theatre is much more difficult.
How did you handled Hollywood before you how did you have the nerve or the gumption or the combination of these things to haggle over a contract when you hadn't even been there yet? Because they offered you a certain amount of money and you asked for more. Did you figure out that's the way to handle them?
Spike up their interest.
Did you arrive in Hollywood in style? When you stepped off the train?
I stepped out of the train. I had a steel filing off the rail, 2 steel filings in my eye, and I looked as though I'd been drunk for a week. Jack Barrymore came down just to say, how do you do? And he came in and said, a wonderful test, and all the politeness. And then he looked at my eyes and he said, oh, yes. He said, come with me a minute, dear. And I went out into the hall and he said, I have something that'll stop that right off. I said, Mr. Barrymore, I have something in my eye. And he said, yes, sir, I know. He said, try a few drops of this. Turn his red eyes white. So, you know, then the long story of the doctor, well, it goes on anyway. They got better.
There are stories about Barrymore that sometimes he was too kind to the recently arrived.
No, he wasn't
really
to me. To me, he was very nice to me. And he sort of held me in position, and I think he thought at one point that I'd given him an invitation, and then he realized I hadn't, and he said sorry.
How come you resisted all the razzmatazz that practically anybody else in your position would have been swept away by?
I thought if I'm a success, it's one thing, but if I'm a flop and I've had all that publicity, it will be really wreck my life. You know, so that I refused to give interviews.
So it was a strategy.
And when I did, well, I just thought, why should they advertise something that the public hasn't said, oh, we rather like her, you know, or the critics. Nobody had said anything. I didn't want to be pre-sold.
But it was the beginning of a long Hepburn tradition, wasn't it, of telling the press as little as possible?
You get sweeter as you get older.
But you didn't do it just out of lack of sweetness. It was a
No, I
strategy.
mean, I think I did it with good sense. It was very good sense. And I mean, the personal life, I don't think that's anybody's business. Then you get to the point in life where you think, well, that's rather interesting. I did do that, and you're looking way back at somebody else.
But the press,
I've gotten to the point where the actor is not me, that's somebody else who's done quite well.
the press did find out that you'd been married, and you said you'd forgotten. Had you really forgotten?
No, of course not. I just thought it was none of their business. And I still think, you know, personal things are nobody's business. I never thought of marriage and a career could mix. I didn't know whether I was going to have any career. I think it's very difficult for 2 total interests to mix. I think the men have it lucky because they don't have the children. And I think the women are in a most complicated position because bringing the children up and doing as much slave work as you have to do today, I mean, it's tough to get nurses and someone who's really going to be responsible. And spoiling a husband, because that's what men expect. And it's what is, to me, is fun to do, to spoil someone. I think they're in a tough spot, the ladies. Unless they're going to get an nincompoop. Well, you know, they're in a tough spot. They are not men. And therefore, I think to be on the safe side. Now, there are many exceptions to every rule, but by and large, for a complete life, you can't be running in two directions.
Your third picture, Morning Glory, very early in your career, you won an Oscar. Were you playing a girl pretty much like yourself?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, she was poor. She wasn't arrogant. At least she didn't realize that she was arrogant. Just the way I don't realize that I'm arrogant, and yet I see signs of it every once in a while.
Why didn't you go to the Oscar ceremony?
Afraid I'd lose. Good reason. Might weep, but I can ask of myself.
So what happened when you won?
That's the only reason that I could think of as to why I don't go to the Oscar ceremonies, and I've gotten away with it. It's a poor excuse.
So that put you right on the crest of a wave. And you went back to Broadway, and with all this enormous...
Then I did Little Women,
Yeah.
which was a really good picture.
Crinoline.
And for which I should have won the award, you know, for the two of them, not just for one, because that was a difficult, not a tricky performance. It was a true American New England girl, and for which I think I was perfectly cast, she said modestly, but I do. And I think it's a memorable picture for which George Cukor should have gotten 20 awards. And then I came back. I don't know why I came back. I felt I should learn to act in the theater.
You had an enormous head of steam behind you now, didn't you? Yeah? And you went back to Broadway. But what happened?
Laid an egg in the lake. And was the joke of this city. I mean, Dorothy Parker said, and quite correctly, she ran the gamut, M-U-T-T-T-T-T, of emotion from A to B. And I just said, well, she never landed on B. She just got as far as A, and that was it. I just walked through the opening night. Walked through
Why?
an opening night. Petrified. Petrified.
Was the play any good, the lake?
I didn't think it was all that bad. I thought I was too young to play it. But I couldn't get going.
So you agreed with the critics?
Oh, I think they were generous.
Maybe that was a step
But then
forward.
I got a teacher, and she came to the play every night, and I finally learned how to play that play. And Noel Coward was there on the opening night. That's when my little sister sat in front of him, and he said, Kate's sister looks the way she should have, but didn't. Which I think is wonderful. And he came back and said to me, you're going to be roasted. And I said, I know. He said, don't let it throw you. Just keep at it.
Coward always used to say that, didn't he? That the secret of success is how you survive failure. Yeah. Is there something to that?
Well, the secret of life is how you survive failure, isn't it? Yeah, sure. You've got to be tough.
This period culminated in you being put on the box office poison list. It occurs to me it's a very distinguished list. And Garbo's on it, Dietrich, Astaire. Were they really saying that some of you people were just too high-tuned for the great middle American
No,
audience?
I don't believe that. My pictures were bores. They were bores. I mean, Woman Rebels was a bore. Break of Hearts was a bore. Quality Street was a bore. And they didn't go. And I sort of smelled it before I made them. But I was on a salary where they had to pay me, and I thought I should do them.
Correct me if I'm romancing, but it was around this time, I think, that you were on the road with Jane Eyre, and every time you stopped, out of the sky, Howard Hughes would appear in a succession of record-breaking aeroplanes
Well,
designed by himself.
now you see you're getting on to a topic that bores me a bit, so let us continue
mean-
with Jane Eyre without Howard.
I can't even mention Hughes?
Well, you could mention Hughes. He was flying around the world.
Well, it just did occur to
Very
me that...
distinguished man.
It just did occur to me that falling for you was the only sane thing he ever did.
I think it was on a par with the rest of the things he did, but poor Howard. He was a brilliant man. You know, he was deaf. At 15, he was deaf. Seriously deaf. And he was brilliant, and he sort of, I guess, had an opinion of himself. He was a handsome man and did not like to appear deaf. So in order to cover it up, instead of saying, which we should all say, I'm terribly sorry I can't see, or I'm very sorry, would you speak louder because my left ear is poor, then nobody cares whether your left ear is poor. They just speak up because they're glad their left ear is okay. So I think this destroyed Howard. I think it's what made Howard eccentric. And Howard then retreated to the telephone. That was sad. He had locked off.
Did he teach you to fly?
No, he didn't teach me to fly, but I had a fellow teach me to fly. But then I never did solo. I flew a lot, but I never soloed because I thought if I don't dare drive a car when I'm working as hard as I am, I worked at a pitch. I still work at a pitch. I can't work any other way.
How did you take off under the 59th Street Bridge?
Yes, I did. Isn't that terrible? I really did, with me at the thing. Yeah. From 23rd Street. Today you'd be arrested. And I used to fly up to Fenwick and swim in the middle of Long Island Sound. It was great fun.
Anyway, it was about here with your career all ups and downs that you went back east. Your family house had been washed away in a flood, and then, I'm romancing here, but it must have been roughly like this. Philip Barry waded in through the front door.
No, Philip didn't weigh in the front door. We used to have tea every afternoon, and a lot of people would collect at 4:30, 5:30 on the porch at Fenwick and have a lot of interesting conversation. So he turned up one afternoon, and we sat with big general conversation like this room. And then he said, am I going to see you alone? And I said, well, we'll go out to the end of the pier. So we went out to the end of the pier, and he told me two plots. One was the Philadelphia story, another was a thing that eventually was called Second Threshold.
But Philadelphia Story was the one, wasn't it? You had a great hand in shaping
Well,
the play.
not really too great. No, just common sense, lucky. You know, I was the contact, you see.
Well, whether or not it was a Hepburn production, it certainly was a Hepburn hit. It was a huge hit on Broadway, wasn't it? But would you have been an automatic choice for the Hollywood version if you hadn't owned the rights of it?
From whose point of view?
From the studio's point of view. I mean, whoever wanted to make it as a film, would they automatically have chosen you if you didn't have them?
Oh, no. One of those girls would have gotten it.
Which girls?
Well, all they, Joan Crawford, Carol Lombard, Norma Shearer, was Irene Dunn, Anne Harding, you name them.
But it had to be you, didn't it?
So I bought it.
You owned the play?
Well, I want to play it.
So you were back on top. You mastered a scintillating comic style with Cary Grant. But for the next film, Woman of the Year, you actively sought out an actor who's the exact opposite of people like Cary Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who doesn't look like he's performing at all.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a plan? Had you always wanted to do that?
Very sensible. Well, it was the character, wasn't it? He was the perfect sports writer, Spencer.
What was it about Tracy's acting that made you want him? Because he's so different from the others.
Ain't you seen his acting?
Yeah, I have, but I want to know what you thought then.
Anyone with a great sense would.
We all know it. We all know it now. The world knows it now. But what did you see then that you wanted? Because he was the lowest profile actor. He did on screen. He seemed to do less acting than anybody else in Hollywood.
Yes, isn't that a relief? Yeah. I hate all that acting. That's exhausting. He was just it.
Is that what you were after, naturalness?
Well, with myself, yes.
Did he teach you that?
Yes. I don't know whether he taught it. Did I have it before? I hope I had some before.
And you had more after you met him?
Yes, I did. I admired him, I don't think you have to gild the lily. You have to think it. But he just had an amazing direction in his funny old eyes, He just was sensitive.
Did he tell you to to do less on screen?
No, he never told me anything. We'd never rehearsed together. Never, ever. Never discussed it.
You ever talk through the script?
No, not a bit.
Who were you and Tracy on screen?
Well, I think we were the perfect male and female of that era. American style.
In what sense?
Well, the woman coming into her own, and the man tried to blockade her. Get her, but blockade her. No? Yes.
Yeah. Was he the man you most admired?
And he had a good sense of humor. I can see you're going to tread too far just in 1 minute, so you better watch
You're
your
reading
step.
my mind, huh?
I'm reading your mind.
Yeah.
But I think he was a really brilliant actor. We had an actress, Laurette Taylor, who was the same sort of Irish potato style of acting. I mean, they both had big faces, and they were very vulnerable, and they found life
I
very
wasn't going to...
difficult.
Is that the way Tracy found life? Difficult?
Yeah, difficult. Well, I mean, I think he found living difficult and being fair difficult. He found acting easy. He could just do it. He's the most entertaining creature, wonderful storyteller, you know, and with a certain amount of bulk, I don't think you have to make too much effort, do you?
Yeah. Why was he he was unhappy then? I mean, I'm not supposed to say this. I think I can figure out what made him happy. I think probably you did. But what made him unhappy? What was it that made him...
Well, listen, what makes anyone unhappy? Who knows? I have a happy nature. You can see I'm so sweet.
Well, did he have a high opinion of the profession he was a supreme in? Did he think a lot of acting?
I thought we were going to talk about me.
We are talking about you.
I don't know what the hell he thought about it. You know, I think he thought it was a fairly silly profession.
But you didn't.
Yes, I know it's a fairly silly profession. But I've lived longer than he did.
Yeah, but you made it look serious, which is what counts. Why was Tracy always billed first?
Because he was the biggest star. He didn't care, but he was the biggest star. He was a bigger draw.
And you never objected?
No, why would I object?
Was that what a truly...
Not that kind of a
Because you're a truly masterful, independent woman. Is that what a truly masterful, independent woman does? Plays herself second?
That's
right?
what a really shrewd woman does. You see.
Oh.
Yes,
yeah.
she has brains enough.
I begin to see. You had, if
No
you're
fool.
If you're really in control, you put yourself in second spot.
Yeah, but that was Metro. We never even discussed it. Spencer said, bill her first. And they said, no, bill you first. And it was better looking that way.
In Pat and Mike, your tennis is very convincing. You're really good at it still, huh?
Well, I was very good at it. I've had 2 rotator cuff operations. I can still play. And it's, I hit a telegraph pole where my ankle was very badly injured. And now the ankle is fused. So we hope it's going to work.
But you could have been a tennis player, couldn't you? As one
I
of
would
these-
love to have been a tennis player. I was a really good golfer, age 14. And I started tennis late. I never played tennis till I went to California. And so that my golf form is excellent. My tennis form is mediocre. But I think tennis, I adore tennis.
Yeah. Bit of chronology now. In the mid-60s,
There's a 5-year gap in which you made no movies at all.
That was a relief. I was going to middle to old, peacefully.
You weren't helping Tracy, but you, yeah? Not going to discuss that. I was going to say you had organised your independent career so that your work could never be compromised, but when it came to that point, you found there was something more important. You're not going to discuss it, are you?
No, I don't think so.
I can tell when you're not going to discuss something.
You can't, because I don't speak to
You don't say it. Anyway, your last working partnership on screen with Tracy was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Yeah.
And he didn't live to see you win the Oscar, and he lived to
He
see himself.
didn't live to see himself win
Not-
the Oscar. I always felt they gave it to both of us.
Yeah, but there was a lot of people think it was just a criminal omission on the Academy's part, not to give him one. Did you think that on that occasion?
I'm not. I don't believe that wildly in prizes.
You don't really think much of the
I-
Oscars anyway, do you?
Well, I tell you, I think when a person has been in the business a certain length of time, I think, of course, you have Oscars too, but I mean, I think it's rather nice when people are knighted, because they're knighted for a good, important bulk of their lives, and we're sort of scatter. I don't know. I mean, how good is the part? Unless you are a really rotten actor. But I mean, the parts, they're a great part. You have a hard time not winning the award, don't you?
Well, you've won 4 Oscars, which is more than anybody else. I don't see them around. Have you got them?
I'm thrilled to have them, but I don't like to be reminded of the past. I just think onward.
What does it take to be a star? Does it take talent, or is it...
I don't know. I've got it. But, I mean, what is it? I don't think it's talent. I think it's just you've got a good hot motor inside you, and it ticks away, and your eyes shine, and your teeth shine. I don't know what the hell it is. Charisma?
A certain amount
But
of...
also good luck. I think good luck all the way. I would say that is one of the main things. First, I would credit my parents, and then I would say I was lucky enough to have been born at a time when they wanted this, me, my, whatever it is. A kind of, so what?
Yeah.
Do you know
Fine.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to be, because I've lasted over a fair period. And I think that that was luck. That this thing that seems to be me was born at the right time for the shape of it, the quality of the inside, everything else. That's luck.
You've always been and always looked a bit above it all. Maybe that was the secret of durability.
I don't think I really looked above it all. I mean, I don't think I ever felt above it all.
It never occurred to you?
I felt that it wasn't going to beat me. Let me say that. When I was down in the gutter and couldn't get a job, I thought, well, that's not going to beat me, because I love to play golf at Fenwick and tennis, and,
It never
there are
occurred-
lots of things I like to do.
It never occurred to you that you sometimes did run into trouble in Hollywood and Broadway because you're an aristocrat in a democratic medium?
That never bothered me. I invite sharp criticism. My attitude invites sharp criticism, and I'm perfectly willing to accept it.
What's the attitude? You're a perfectionist. You want...
Well, I'm a perfectionist, and I'm irritating, I think. Now, I mean, a lot of people said, for instance, in the early days of my career, that I was ticking everyone off and saying, do this, do that. I couldn't have been. They thought that. They made that up. I was petrified, the way everyone else is. Thought, am I going to lose the bloody job?
So it was really nerves that made you seem...
I suppose, don't you? I suppose. Who knows? You don't know yourself, really. But I would say...
You once said that there's no laurel worth resting on, and you worked as hard as ever, but you started doing some movies for fun, didn't you? Making films where you sail around in balloons and you rode side by side with John Wayne.
Yeah, but I mean, I like those stories. As you get older, it's extremely difficult to find a topic that isn't some poor old thing in a rest home.
But you could have settled for playing lovable old ladies, and instead you chose to confront the issue of growing old as it actually is by making On Golden Pond. Was that a conscious decision? Did you think it's...
No, I didn't think anything about it. I thought it was a good script. And at least it wasn't in a nursing home. I think it's hard to find material that, is at all interesting after a certain age, especially if you're a woman. You either play a lunatic or I don't know what you play. But so I seek stories of that sort.
Anyway, in On Golden Pond, which was...
I played my mother in On Golden Pond. I played my mother.
Did Fonda play your father?
No, Fonda played himself. Well, Fonda played somebody, but he didn't play
well,
my
in the movie,
father.
in the movie, the Henry Fonda character is obviously having...
He's colourful.
But he's hating to grow old, isn't he? And your character is saying, no, you must accept age as part of life's process. There's even something noble about it. Did you really believe that?
I don't think there's anything noble about it. I mean, rotting away cannot be called fun in anyone's vocabulary, can it? If they have any sense.
Well, in your latest movie, that's the ultimate solution of grace quickly. That you seem to be saying exactly that.
What?
You're saying that
go away fast.
Old age is something you should get out of by any means, including euthanasia.
No. Only if you, if it's a nightmare. I think you should have a right to get out of it if it's a nightmare. She wanted to pack up and quit only because all she had to do was to sit. She was not used. The older people are not used. They say, oh, go and sit down and have a good time. And they're all waiting in rest homes all over the place for the next world. Come.
But you're not doing that.
Well, I'm not doing that, but I've been damn lucky. I've been lucky. And I have money. And
what are you working on now, though? You've got a
go
secret.
away. I
You've got
have
a secret
yes,
project.
I sure have.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the reason I did quickly was that I think, we all live and we all die, and this terror of the next world, I think it's a mistake. And I think lying there with something up your nose and every other thing and just unable to speak is the wickedest thing that has been done to the human race. And I think people should be allowed to depart when they wish to depart. And if no one wants you, no one will employ you. You have no money. All you do is either sit in the street or get sent to your family, by your family, to a rest home where you're surrounded with people who are tied into a chair. I don't see the sense. It doesn't seem right.
But you better be damn sure that people are asking to be let out of this and not just...
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a terribly difficult problem because the right to kill someone is difficult. But if you want to depart and can convince someone that you really are in no shape to go on, I think you should be allowed to.
You said one day that you might do something different. What would that have been?
Well, I would love to have been a painter, and I would love to have been a writer. I would like to have done anything that I could do alone. The work that I do, which is selling my deteriorating self, is very humiliating work. And you have to come off as a kind of, I don't know what.
Do you really believe that? Do you think this is
I
another
know
challenge?
goddamn well that's true, if you'll pardon my saying so, because when you cease to be delicious, you get dumped. And...
you never got dumped.
Not yet. Could happen any minute. I've been dumped and picked up again. I've run ahead to the next stop and said, here I am. But I think that when you sell yourself, that is difficult. And I think that's why I would like to have had a more private profession.